Why the Guess Who will never get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music. Our special guest is one of my favorite interviews, and I've sat on this interview for a few too many months. So Robert, I'm sorry about this. His name is Robert Lawson, an amazing writer. He wrote Still Competition, a listener's guide to Cheap Trick, Erasmus Naz, a listener's guide to Nazareth. Of course, we recently lost Dan McCafferty, and Wheatfield Empire, a listener's guide to the Guess Who. In this first clip about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you will hear Robert talking about former members of the Guess Who. Most notably, of course, Burton Cummings, their lead singer for so many years, and Randy Bachman. But the other members he talks about, sometimes calls them angry grandpas, Jim Cale, who was in the band on and off, Gary Peterson, the original drummer, Donnie McDougall, and Bill Wallace. We'll have links to Robert Lawson in the description of this video. Why the Guess Who will never get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And a few comments he has about Randy Bachman. What was your take looking at that side of the band? Because we're dealing with big personalities here.
Yeah, for sure. And they, there's a lot of anger still amongst these guys when things like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame come up, which I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago, these two gals out in Winnipeg contacted me. They wanted me to help do some press to get the Guess Who into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I said, well, I can talk to some people, but I know that it's not going to happen. Like, there's no way it's going to happen. And a lot of fans don't understand that. Burton's mad at Jim and Gary. Gary's mad at them. Lately, Donnie is mad at a bunch of people, and Bill Wallace, he's kind of an angry guy too, even though I get along with him. They're all like really angry grandpas, you know.
But you're talking about them performing together in that way. But then, of course, the Guess Who come up, and I say, I don't see that happening. But are you talking about a reunion more than them getting in? Because what's your take on them not getting in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Well, Burton doesn't want it. He's gone on record. He always says things like, you know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for him is his basement, which is lined with gold albums. So he doesn't need, you know, a shiny award or something. He's loved, you know, over the world for his songwriting. But even to be on stage, he won't be on the stage to accept something if Jim and Gary are there, because he feels that they've devalued the name The Guess Who in the States. And I think they have, because, you know, the Guess Who were playing like state fairs. And then in 2000, you had this big Guess Who reunion for a couple years. And then Cale's Guess Who goes back to playing state fairs. And promoters were having an issue where the reunion lineup, Burton, Gary, Donnie, Bill, and Randy Bachman, they were trying to get these gigs. And, you know, a promoter would say, well, why would I pay you guys, you know, $8,000 or whatever for a gig when you guys were here just a couple years ago and I got you for $2,000? It's like, well, that was a different band, and people don't know that. People have a hard time following that because they don't have the face recognition down there. When the 2001 reunion came through Sacramento, I was living there at the time, and I asked a guy that worked with me if he wanted to come, because Sony gave me a whole bunch of free tickets. I was a Tower Records manager. So this guy, he said, oh, I wish I could, but, you know, I saw him a few years ago in Richmond, Virginia, and they were really good. That guy still has the pipes. And I said, oh, yeah. And then I thought about it a little bit more. I'm like, a couple years ago, that's not who's touring now. So people don't really understand the difference. And to this day, on Burton's Facebook page or on different social media platforms, people will post to him like that they saw the Guess Who, you know, 8 years ago, and Burton and Randy rocked it. And like, there's no way they were there in the Guess Who 8 years ago.
You know, the Little River Band are dealing with the same thing. When I talked to the three main guys, Glenn Shorrock first, and who I always thought was Glenn Shorrock. I'm doing a whole segment on people who, and Randy Bachman. Bachman sounds better, but it's Bachman.
Yeah.
And I just talked to him a little while ago, and people came up to me and said, man, Randy has a selective memory. I'm going, I don't know. I ask the questions, he answers them. That's the way it goes. But then I did a little bit more research, and I went, holy moly, that's not how it went down. What's going on? But
I have a lot about that.
Yeah, well, and you know, But anyway, the names I find with fair weather music fans, who are most people. I mean, guys like you and me, or the guys that are the proggers, especially the proggers, are awful. I mean, they at the beginning when I'm interviewing all these guys, they're going, "Oh yeah, who are you? Who are you? I don't know you, so you mustn't be nobody because you're not in the club yet. They haven't accepted you." I see this also when I go to parties, and I'll find a guy like you, and I'll congregate you and start talking. Say, "Hey, what?" And someone else is listening, going, "These freaking nerds! What the hell? Who cares what was on Bass Player on the third album?" Because most people. I was standing outside Elton John concert, and I love Elton John. It's my favorite artist of all time. And for whatever reason, I had to be outside with the microphone for CFUN in Vancouver, this monumental station. I'm asking people what their favorite songs are. Oh, I like Daniel. Someone Saved My Life. There's like 5 songs. Elton's had a lot.
Sure.
But the fair weather music fans who just freaking saw all the songs and experienced them and heard them had like 5 songs. Same thing when I saw Roy Orbison. Pretty Woman. Because fair weather music fans are like that. So I know your pain when it comes to people who get mixed up, who still see the Little River Band, for instance, and think that they're all original members when there's not even an Aussie in the band anymore.
Right. Well, the Guess Who are currently playing dates again now that some restrictions are lifting. They started playing, I think, 2 weeks ago, and the crowds like go nuts for them. And I've watched footage of it, and I find it really odd. You know, the lead singer, this guy named Derek, he's got long, straight blonde hair. Like, he doesn't even look like Burton. But people, they think it's great. And maybe it is great. It's great for them. But it does devalue the name of the Guess Who. That's just a fact that it's harder. I think the Guess Who reunion would have kept going a little longer. I know there was plans for a studio album, and that just never happened. But the Randy thing is funny. You know, I've been watching your interviews with him. And you know, I'm
guilty.
I'm used to it by now. That you know, he likes to tell stories. That's for sure. I mean, that's what a lot of people don't know. That's why he lost his CBC radio show. There were so many complaints about, you know, basically fake news, because he just says so much stuff that's incorrect. And you know, I love Randy so much. I'm not going to say he's lying. I don't know if it's a selective memory. I don't know if he's losing it a little bit. I don't know, but he says stuff incorrect all the time. And there's lots of mistakes in his books. You know, he has 3 books, and they're all just like full of mistakes. And I tried to clear up a couple of those kind of things in my book, just for clarification, just to get kind of the truth out there. Because Randy will just go on. There was one of the recent ones with you. He says that him, Fred, Burton, and Neil Young are considered the 4 horsemen of Winnipeg. I've never heard anyone refer to those guys as that. What does that mean?
I don't even remember that. That was great. We saw, like, I told him about the special I'm doing, and he wanted to be represented. That's great. I thought Randy Bachman would be good. You know, we're trying for Burton now. I've been told wait in line for a long time. But how did you get Burton, by the way? Did you know him?
I used to know him like 10 or 12 years ago. He was looking for bootlegs of the Guess Who and old TV shows and stuff like that. And I had a bunch of stuff. So a mutual friend put us in touch. And whenever he'd come to town, I'd have a stack of CDs and DVDs for him. He invited me to a band rehearsal in a private little rehearsal studio, which was great. It was like a 2-hour concert. And I brought a buddy of mine. We're sitting on this couch looking down on the band. And that was really a unique experience. And then I didn't have any contact with him for quite a while. When I started the book, I just reached out to him again. And it was actually kind of funny because I reached out to a new mutual friend because his email address had changed. And this person said, well, you know, he's playing at the C&E. He thinks he will contribute to the book, but he'd like to talk to you about it after the show. So I said, great. So after the show, and this was the show that Randy joined for the Encores in 2019, I think. So after the show, I go backstage, and this person's explaining, oh, hey, Burton, you know, the guy who's writing the book that you wanted to talk to is here. And he looks at me and he goes, Lawson, it's you? And then I made my pitch to Randy, and he was all in. He was 100% in, and then that ended a few months later.
How? Because I noticed that I noticed his absence, and I thought, Because he's, like you said, he loves to talk. And I went, why isn't he here? What happened?
He, yeah, it was so weird. Like we took a picture together, and when I explained to him the idea of the book, he was all in, and we exchanged a few emails, and those were really good. And then there were some forces behind the scenes that didn't want a nobody like me, that's what I was told, to write a book about the Guess Who. Because the Guess Who are so important, they should have a book written by, a major rock writer like Robert Hilburn or, some of these really big guys. My response to that was just like, well, I don't think those guys are doing one. So, and this doesn't stop them from doing one if they want to, but I really don't think, Dave Marsh is working on a Guess Who book. So anyway, this person behind the scenes convinced Randy and Randy's manager at the time that I was not worthy to talk to, and I wrote back to Randy and I said, it's really unfortunate, somebody's telling you lies. My original pitch to you still stands. It's about the music. It's not about gossip. It's not about infighting. It's purely about the records and the recordings. And I really hope you'll reconsider. And he responded to that and said, unless you can prove to me that this will be the true story of the Guess Who, with all members involved, then I'm too busy with other projects. Because at the time I didn't have Gary Peterson on board. I couldn't reach Gary Peterson for like over a year and a half. I tried 3 different ways, couldn't get to him. But then after that I did, and Gary was great. In fact, today is the 2-year anniversary or 3-year anniversary of me interviewing Gary. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't get Jim Cale, and for a few different reasons. But even Randy saying, well, it won't be the true, biography of the Guess Who. And I said, well, this isn't a biography though. This is talking about the music, talking about the records. So it's really unfortunate. I feel Randy got played because these people convinced him, and it's too bad because he would be good to have in the book. Although I would have to really edit his comments because I wouldn't want him repeating too many of his stories that I know are incorrect. So I might not have pointed out some of his stories as much as I did in the book if he was on board. So that might have been a little bit of me sticking it to him, but I still feel bad that he wasn't a part of it. And I feel bad that he didn't take me at my word of my intentions, but
Robert Lawson wrote this amazing book on the Guess Who, Wheatfield Empire. I really enjoyed it. I get a lot of books. I like the way he writes. Links in the description of this video. We'll have more from Robert the next 2-3 days, and some of this interview will be on our Canadian channel, including the whole interview. Rock History Canada, of course, links in the description. If you want to help out the channel, there's the 2 P's, PayPal and Patreon. You can make a donation via PayPal or join our Patreon, get early access to our videos. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos on social media or the groups they belong in. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music.